Sandra Birchmore, a young woman with a bright smile and a kind heart, fell in love with a man who promised her the world. She was full of dreams and aspirations, believing that she had finally found the one who would stand by her side through thick and thin. Matthew Farwell, a police officer, was supposed to be a protector, a guardian of justice. His uniform symbolized safety and trust, and Sandra felt secure in his presence, thinking he was a man of honor and integrity. He vowed to love and cherish Sandra, but his promises were as empty as the darkness that would soon engulf her life. Farwell's words were sweet, but they masked a sinister reality that Sandra was yet to uncover. Their relationship began like many others, filled with stolen glances, whispered promises, and the intoxicating rush of new love. They shared moments of laughter and joy, creating memories that Sandra thought would last a lifetime. Sandra, blinded by Farwell's charm and the allure of his badge, believed she had found her soulmate. She admired his dedication to his job and the way he carried himself with confidence and authority. She saw in him a future filled with happiness and security, unaware that beneath the surface of his charming demeanor lurked a monster. Her dreams were built on the foundation of his lies, and she was blissfully ignorant of the storm that was brewing. Farwell, a master manipulator, carefully crafted the image of a loving and devoted partner. He knew exactly how to win Sandra's trust and affection, presenting himself as the perfect man. He showered Sandra with affection, showering her with gifts and compliments, all the while hiding his true nature. His gestures of love were calculated, designed to keep Sandra under his spell. He was adept at playing the role of the perfect boyfriend, convincing Sandra that she had found someone who truly understood and cared for her. He listened to her dreams, her fears, and her hopes, making her feel valued and cherished. Little did Sandra know she was dancing with the devil in disguise. Farwell's true intentions were hidden behind his charming facade, and Sandra was about to face a harsh reality that would shatter her world. The love she thought was real was nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, and the man she trusted was a master of deceit. As the honeymoon phase faded, the mask Farwell so carefully constructed began to slip. The charming facade crumbled, revealing the dark underbelly of his true nature. The abuse started subtly, a harsh word here, a dismissive gesture there, but it quickly escalated into a terrifying cycle of control and violence. Sandra found herself trapped in a nightmare. Farwell, fueled by a dangerous cocktail of possessiveness and rage, exerted his dominance over every aspect of her life. He isolated her from her friends and family, cutting off her support system and leaving her vulnerable to his manipulations. The physical abuse left visible scars, a constant reminder of his brutality. But it was the emotional and psychological torment that cut the deepest. Farwell chipped away at Sandra's self-worth, eroding her confidence and leaving her feeling trapped and alone. Sandra, once so full of life, was now a shadow of her former self, her spirit crushed under the weight of Farwell's abuse. Amidst the darkness, a flicker of hope emerged. In the shadows of a city that never seemed to sleep, a small light began to shine, offering a glimmer of possibility in a world that often felt devoid of it. Sandra discovered she was pregnant. The realization hit her like a tidal wave, bringing with it a flood of emotions she hadn't anticipated. This tiny life growing inside her was a beacon of hope, a symbol of new beginnings. The news, while daunting, filled her with a mix of fear and a desperate longing for a better future. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but the thought of holding her baby in her arms gave her the strength to face them. She dared to believe that this child, this innocent life growing inside of her, could be her salvation, a chance to escape the clutches of her abuser. Each day she would place her hand on her growing belly, whispering promises of a brighter tomorrow. The pregnancy, however, did little to quell Farwell's rage. His anger was a storm that never seemed to pass, and the news of the baby only seemed to fuel his fury. If anything, it seemed to intensify his need for control. Farwell's temper flared more frequently, his actions becoming increasingly unpredictable and dangerous. He saw the child not as a blessing, but as a threat, an obstacle to his power over Sandra. In his twisted mind, the baby was a rival, someone who could potentially take Sandra's attention and loyalty away from him. He feared that the baby would expose his true nature, that Sandra would find the strength to leave him and protect her child. The thought of losing his grip on her terrified him, driving him to even greater acts of cruelty. The abuse continued unabated, even as Sandra's belly swelled with life. Each day was a battle for survival, her body bearing the physical and emotional scars of Farwell's relentless torment. Farwell's cruelty knew no bounds, his actions a betrayal of the trust she had so naively placed in him. The man who was supposed to be her partner, her protector, had become her worst nightmare. He was supposed to be the father of her child, her protector, but instead, he was her tormentor, the source of her deepest fears. The dreams she had once held for their future together were shattered, replaced by a daily struggle to keep herself and her unborn child safe. Sandra, trapped in a web of fear and manipulation, found herself facing an impossible choice. She knew that staying meant continued suffering, but leaving was fraught with its own dangers. The path to freedom was unclear, but for the sake of her child, she knew she had to find a way. A mother's last moments. On a cold February night, tragedy struck. The air was frigid, and the streets were eerily quiet, blanketed in a thick layer of snow. It was the kind of night where the cold seemed to seep into your bones, making everything feel a little more desolate. Sandra Birchmore, 8 months pregnant, was found dead in her apartment. The news sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone in a state of disbelief and sorrow. The official cause of death: a tragic accident, a fall down the stairs. The authorities were quick to close the case, labeling it as an unfortunate mishap. But for those who knew Sandra, who had witnessed the bruises she tried so desperately to hide, something felt terribly wrong. The bruises told a different story, one of fear and suffering that she had endured in silence. Her death, ruled an accident, seemed almost too convenient, too perfectly aligned with Farwell's narrative. The skepticism grew as more details emerged, casting a shadow of doubt over the official story. He claimed to have been at work at the time, that he had returned home to find his pregnant girlfriend lying lifeless at the bottom of the stairs. His alibi seemed solid, but the timing and circumstances raised many questions. The image of Sandra, her body broken, her unborn child forever silenced, haunted the minds of her loved ones. The grief was palpable, a heavy weight that pressed down on everyone who had known and loved her. They refused to believe that her death was merely a tragic accident. The community rallied together, holding vigils and demanding answers, their collective voice growing louder with each passing day. They knew in their hearts that Farwell was responsible, that he had taken from them the daughter, the sister, the friend they cherished so dearly. The memories of Sandra, her laughter, her kindness, and her dreams for the future fueled their determination to seek justice. The fight for justice for Sandra and her unborn child had just begun. The courtroom became a battleground, a place where the truth would be sought, and where Sandra's voice, though silenced, would be heard through the unwavering resolve of those who loved her. The journey ahead was long and arduous, but they were prepared to face it, united in their quest for justice. Whispers of murder. The investigation into Sandra's death was flawed from the start. Clouded by Farwell's position as a police officer, a veil of silence seemed to blanket the case. Crucial evidence was overlooked, witness testimonies were dismissed, and a sense of unease settled over the investigation. Whispers of foul play began to circulate. Sandra's family and friends, their grief intertwined with suspicion, refused to let her memory be tarnished by lies. They knew Farwell's capacity for violence, had witnessed firsthand the darkness that lurked beneath his charming facade. They demanded answers, pushing for a deeper investigation, one that would expose the truth behind Sandra's untimely death. They refused to let Farwell's badge shield him from accountability, from the consequences of his actions. The truth, however, lay buried beneath layers of deceit, carefully orchestrated by a man who believed himself to be above the law. Unraveling the deception, a web of lies. As the investigation progressed, a sinister truth began to unravel. Farwell's carefully constructed alibi crumbled under scrutiny. Phone records placed him at Sandra's apartment at the time of her death, contradicting his initial statement. Witnesses came forward, sharing accounts of Farwell's controlling behavior and threats towards Sandra. The physical evidence, too, painted a damning picture. The injuries on Sandra's body were inconsistent with a fall down the stairs. The autopsy revealed signs of struggle, of blunt force trauma, indicating that Sandra had fought for her life and the life of her unborn child. Farwell, the once respected officer, was now the prime suspect in a murder investigation. His attempts to cover up his crime, to manipulate the narrative, had backfired, exposing him as the monster he truly was. The evidence was mounting, pointing towards a chilling conclusion. Sandra's death was no accident.